Hello YouTube, my name is Nero. Today we have some more Borderlands. Welcome back to the original Borderlands. Ladies and gentlemen, did you guys know that yesterday was actually the 8th year anniversary of this game coming out? It's been 8 freaking years. Where does the time go? Today I thought I would sit down and discuss what I personally would like to see out of the next Borderlands game. We do know for a fact that Gearbox Software is working on a new Borderlands game. They haven't come out and said it's going to be Borderlands 3, but everyone thinks it's going to be Borderlands 3. It's heavily implied that it's going to be Borderlands 3, and I thought, let's talk about what I personally want to see and see what you guys think. Like, what do you guys want to see out of Borderlands 3? Let me know about that down there in the comment section below. It may be a longer video, maybe a shorter video. I have no idea how long it's going to be. I'm just going to sit down and just talk about what I personally want to see out of the next Borderlands title. First things first, the setting. I want the game to be set on Pandora. There's a lot of rumors and speculation going around that's tying into Battleborn, saying that, like, we're going to be on Promethea for a setting in Borderlands 3. And for me, it's like, that sounds interesting. Like, I love the lore of the Borderlands universe. Like, I want to explore the universe a bit more and see what's going on with the Iridians and the other planets and stuff like that. But at the same time, Pandora is home to me in the Borderlands series. Like, this place is home, going back to Firestone or Sanctuary or the Doll Headland or, New Haven, like, that's home for me in the Borderlands franchise. And I worry that if we go to someplace completely new, it's not going to feel like home as much. I mean, we saw that a little bit in the pre-sequel. We go up there to Elpis, I think it's actually called the Moon. And while we're up there, like, it felt like Borderlands, it looked like Borderlands, there's a lot of familiar things up there. It still felt pretty different. We were on a whole different planet, essentially. It was a moon, but you get what I'm saying, right? It was really far away from Pandora. There wasn't really a whole lot of things in the game that actually tied you back to Pandora. It felt a little bit different and disconnected to an extent, right? So I'm hoping in Borderlands 3, if we do go to some other places, I hope we at least spend some time on Pandora, because that's home to me. And one of my favorite parts of Borderlands 2 was how they tied in some areas from Borderlands 1 into the games. For example, when we go back to the Arid Badlands, I mean, that's one of my favorite moments in gaming. The first time I walked into the Arid Badlands, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I know this place, I know where we are. And we go see what happened to Firestone after the events of Borderlands 1 going into Borderlands 2. We got to see how the entire zone pretty much changed. TK Baja's house was still there. It's like, this is freaking incredible. And they add some extra things like giving us the ability to actually go underneath TK Baja's house and kind of find out what happened to him and stuff like that. Like, little things like that I really love about the Borderlands franchise, and I want more of that in Borderlands 3. Like, don't get me wrong, I want new content and new areas and stuff like that, but I want them to tie in the old world as well. Like, stuff that we saw in Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2, I want that stuff to be tied in to Borderlands 3. Next up, and I think this is going to be one that's going to cause a little bit of controversy perhaps in the comments, but I think it's finally time that we make our own Vault Hunters. In every Borderlands game so far, we've had a variety of Vault Hunters to choose from, but they're all their own characters already, right? If you want to be a soldier in the original Borderlands, well, you're not a soldier, you're Roland. You're not your own character, you are Roland. In Borderlands 2, if I want to be a psycho, I'm not just a psycho. I'm not me, I'm Krieg, right? It's a little bit different there. You feel disconnected from your character because it's not actually you, it's a character you are playing, which I think some people like that, but I think it's finally time for us to make the change and allow us to make our own Vault Hunters. They say war is coming and they're going to need all the Vault Hunters they can get. Why not make it so we can really legitimately bring all the Vault Hunters we can? Instead of bringing on, 4 new characters, quote unquote, and add them to the story, why not allow us to be part of the story ourselves? Because I would argue that the characters that we play don't actually play a role really whatsoever until the next game, right? So in the original Borderlands, when you're playing as Roland, did that really matter at all in any form or fashion, like whatsoever, the fact that you were actually Roland? Or when you play as Mordecai or even Lilith, a freaking siren, did it matter whatsoever that you were actually playing that character, or is that just a character you played? Those characters didn't actually have an effect until Borderlands 2, when they stopped being playable characters and they became NPCs. And once they did that, they actually served a purpose, pretty much, right? So I think it's finally time that we move away from that. Instead of just adding, 4 new characters to the mix, make it so we have 4 to 6 classes to choose from. I'm talking Psycho, Soldier, Hunter, Gladiator, stuff like that. Necromancer even maybe, and to make it so they're playable classes in the game, you pick your class, you make your character male or female, then customize them the way you want them to be. Make them look like a random citizen of Pandora, make them look like you, make them look like whoever you want them to look like. It's your character. I think that would be a really good idea. I think it's finally time we do that, though the downside, and this is going to be where some people are going to get hung up on this, is I don't think we could have a siren if we were to do that. I'm going to be explaining why, but it's going to be tying into another point here. So my next point is I feel as though the hub city should be like an MMO. Now, I'm not saying, because some people have definitely brought this up in the past, I'm not saying I want Borderlands 3 to be an MMO game. I don't want it to become, you know, Elder Scrolls Online, but in the Borderlands universe where we're all fighting over one area, trying to kill skags to complete a mission. Like, I don't want that to happen. But I think it would be awesome if when we go to a hub city, and every game has a hub city, right? Sanctuary, New Haven, Firestone, Concordia. When we go to wherever the hub city in Borderlands 3 is actually going to be, it should be full of other Vault Hunters, right? If we all can customize our own Vault Hunter and we have a bunch of different classes to choose from, then it would be awesome if when we go to the hub city, it's actually populated by real people hanging out at the bar or doing events or just being part of the city in general. That's one of the coolest parts about MMOs. Like if you go to Stormwind or Orgrimmar in WoW, like it's full of other players and that's awesome. But at the same time, I don't want the whole game to become an MMO, right? I want once we leave the hub city for it to go back to being a normal Borderlands game. Maybe you party up with a couple of people and you guys leave together. That could be a thing that could happen. But when you go back out into the world, have it be a normal Borderlands game where you're on your own or with up to 3 friends. Like that's why I want it to be in Borderlands 3. The downside to this, however, is if we have all these players running around, lore-wise, I don't see how we can have Sirens be a playable class, and I know people love Sirens in the Borderlands franchise, so I'm not sure if they would want to go without having a Siren in Borderlands 3 as a playable class. But, you know, lore-wise, we can't have that many of them within the universe at any given time, so it would be kind of odd to go to Sanctuary, for example, and have it, you know, 20 different Sirens all running around in one area. That would be kind of odd. But, I mean, obviously, they can work that stuff out potentially. I'm just throwing out suggestions here. I think that would be a really cool idea. Not to mention endgame content, right? Endgame content in Borderlands is a very big deal. Like, obviously, questing and leveling characters and stuff is fun, and trying out different skill trees and talents. That's all fine and dandy. But it's the endgame that keeps people around. That's the reason why I stopped playing the pre-sequel. There was no endgame. The endgame was terrible in the pre-sequel. Like, you get to the endgame, which was at the time level 50 when I quit, and then you get there, you beat the final boss of the game, and then you're like, all right, time to take on that raid boss. Oh, the raid boss is the same boss as the final boss, and not even more difficult. Like, literally, my brother and I took on the quote-unquote raid boss at level 50 using questing gear, like the Rosie weapon, I think it was called, and that's all we needed. We took down the raid boss. He didn't even drop us anything decent. Like, it was such a giant letdown. There was no end game in the pre-sequel, and thus, we quit. There was no point, honestly, in playing. Like, the reason why endgame was good in Borderlands 2 was because there was Terramorphous, right? There was the Warrior. There's these big bosses that are actually hard to beat, and so to beat them, you have to go out into the world to all of these, you know, big NPCs that have a chance to drop legendaries. You farm legendaries to get the gear, and you use those legendaries to try and take out the raid bosses, and you farm the raid bosses to try and get even better gear. There's a progression there, right? There wasn't that in the pre-sequel, so I want there to be a lot of endgame content in Borderlands 3, and I want there to be even bigger endgame content in Borderlands 3, because again, going with all my ideas here, if we have customizable Vault Hunters, and we have everyone hanging out in the hub city, while you're there in the hub city, start chatting with some people, say, hey, would you like to go do the raid, and have there be a couple of super raid bosses, right? Have there be bosses that require 8 Vault Hunters or 10 Vault Hunters. You know, a couple of people spec'd into being like a tank pretty much, or people spec'd into being healers, or spec'd into being DPS. Have it feel like an MMO in that respect, but again, at the same time, only in that circumstance. When I'm talking about making Borderlands 3 an MMO, I'm talking about the hub city actually having players, and some, not all, raid bosses requiring you to have 8 or 10 people. That would be awesome in my opinion. Of course, still have some normal raid bosses that require only 4 people, of course. You know, don't have everything be, you know, 8 to 10 people. But I'm just saying, like, these extra features would really spice up Borderlands 3 in my opinion. Not to mention, when it comes to, like, weapons and gearing, I really do like the Borderlands formula a lot. But I think it would be cool if they were to bring back weapon proficiencies. Badass rank is cool. Weapon proficiencies are cool. I like both of them, honestly. But I think it would be cool if we were to go back to weapon proficiencies, because it's a lot easier to, I think, mod in badass S rank, you can also change up your proficiency, I suppose, as well. And that's like something that really kind of ruins this entire thing. If they were to make Borderlands 3 a game that actually does have a number of online elements, they would have to work to make it so it's not as easily exploited. So for example, obviously everybody knows, what's that program? Gibbed is a thing you can mess around with in Borderlands 2, and you can just like add whatever gun to your inventory, and you can dupe those guns. You can join people's games and throw them down legendaries and leave, and you can basically cheat to have the best stuff in the game if you want to. It's not something I personally do. It ruins the game for me personally, but it's something that's actually available. They would have to work to make sure that couldn't happen. Otherwise, can you imagine being in the hub city where some guy comes in there after modding his inventory full of the best gear in the game, then he just starts throwing legendaries about? Maybe they could fix that by making it so you can't throw down weapons while in the hub city where people can pick them up, but still, like, they would have to do some security things like that. I mean, I would like to see a situation where it kind of feels like an MMO to some extent, but at the same time still feeling like a Borderlands game, and also bring back some of the old weapon manufacturers, right? S&S Munitions, bring back Atlas, like we saw them in the original Borderlands, but not in Borderlands 2, or even the pre-sequel, I don't believe anyway. It's been a while since I played the pre-sequel, but yeah, it's always odd when they get rid of stuff like that. Bring back those manufacturers. I get that their quote-unquote niches were kind of taken away, but, you know, maybe give them a new niche. I love all the weapons in Borderlands. It's one of the reasons why Borderlands is so popular, especially in 2. It's awesome when you have all these different manufacturers that look so unique and perform so unique. Like, that's a really cool thing as well. So, those are my thoughts and feelings of Borderlands 3. Like, of course, I don't have the entire thing fleshed out, but I have a pretty good grasp on what I want to see out of the next game. I want it to be set on Pandora. I really do. I want it to feel like a Borderlands game in terms of questing and doing the story and all that. You know, you should be able to do it by yourself or with a couple of friends co-op. That should be it. You shouldn't be able to run around with 10 people out in the world. You should be bumping into other people out in the world unless you're grouped up with them. That should not be a thing. But when you are in the hub city, that should be full of other players. There should be things to do in the actual city itself, you know, kind of similar to what we're seeing in Call of Duty World War II this year with their headquarters feature. Do something similar with Borderlands 3. That would be fantastic. Make it so Endgame has a lot of different raid bosses, right? And also have a couple of super raid bosses that require more than just 4 people that you have to actually go, you know, either queue up with or talk to some people back in the main city and go out there together and, you know, coordinate, and that would be cool. I think that would be a really awesome thing. And in terms of like a story and stuff like that, I don't care. I really don't. Tell me more about the Borderlands universe, you know, have some character development with some of the guys from the previous games. That would be cool. That really would be. But I would love to see Borderlands 3 take on some of these new elements, because I think it would actually help the game evolve a little bit more. And of course, those are my thoughts and feelings. I'd love to hear what you guys think down there in the comment section below. What class do you think you would play in Borderlands 3 if they went with this idea? You know, for me personally, if they were to make it so we can make our own Vault Hunters, I would just want to be a Psycho again. I love Krieg in Borderlands 2 so much. Like, I would just be another Psycho. It would be fantastic. It would be awesome. I would really have a lot of fun with that. But of course, I'm sure a lot of you guys would want to play Sirens. But lore-wise, how could you actually do that if we actually have other players running around in the same area? So maybe Sirens wouldn't be a playable class, which I think is going to turn a lot of people off. So again, I just love to hear what you guys think down there in the comment section below. What do you want to see out of Borderlands 3? I can't wait to learn more about the game. I mean, obviously it's not coming this year, probably next year, honestly. But we're probably a ways away from it. I mean, they haven't really had anything official announced so far. They've showed us that one thing. I forget what event it was even at, that tech demo essentially that showed off some graphics and stuff like that. Like, that gave us an idea of what the game may actually look like. But man, I can't wait for this game, because I love the Borderlands franchise, and the pre-sequel was a giant letdown. And so I don't really have a ton of fun going back to play it. And Borderlands 1, as you guys are seeing here, like, I beat it in an entire Let's Play. We beat all the DLCs in Let's Plays as well. But there's really nothing here to keep me going, because the scaling is so bad that if I want to get to Endgame, I'm going to have to grind through a bunch of boringness, right? Because everything's like 8 levels behind me. And I beat Borderlands 2 to death. Now, I hate to say it, but I really have beat that game to death. Like, there's not really much else for me to do. Like, I can go back and play and have fun with it, but I've done it all before, and I've done it so many times all before. That's like, man, I just really wish we had a new, awesome Borderlands experience, and that's what I'm hoping we're going to get out of Borderlands 3. And the ideas I went over here in this video would help that experience be even more unique and interesting, in my opinion, while at the same time still feeling like Borderlands. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for you guys here in this video. Thank you all so much for listening. Let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section below, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.